hear like word on Twitter and all of that, like, oh, she's taking the sport to new heights and all of that. But for me, I just go out here, do what I do, and then whatever happens, happens. But I also think that when somebody's striving for perfection and doing harder skills, it pushes other athletes to know that it's possible and that they can do it too.
That was the GOAT, Simone Biles, as she gets set to take her talents to Tokyo and try to repeat what she did in Rio, which was absolutely dominate the games. Good evening, everybody. Welcome yet again to the Fox 26 Sportstream. I'm Sal Manine, your host, sports producer here at Fox 26. We're going to hear more from Simone, one of her teammates, Jordan Childs, who is also working out at the World Champion Center in spring. Jordan is heading to Tokyo. We'll check in with their coach, or at least one of them is both Cecile Landy and her husband, Laurent Landy, will be heading to Tokyo as part of the coaching staff for Team USA. And then we'll also get into some Astros as they are getting set to take the field any moment now against the Orioles. First pitch just about seconds away. Jose Urquidy on the bump as the Astros are trying to bounce back from a very bizarre game last night. If you missed it, they lost late after they tied the game thanks to walks. It wasn't until the bottom of the ninth inning that the Astros actually had an RBI hit. Their first 3 runs against the O's were all off of walks and a sac fly before they tied things up late, but the bullpen couldn't hold it up and they end up losing in the ninth inning in a very long game, more than 4 hours long. So the Astros looking to bounce back. We'll also hear from Alex Bregman, who got some very good news as he continues his rehab with that quad strain that he's been dealing with. He's not going to be back anytime soon, but the news that he got today definitely makes the prognosis, and especially the long-term prognosis, something to be excited about if you are a Astros fan. So we'll get you updated on the Astros as they get underway with the O's at Minute Maid, and we'll also have a tease of something that's coming up later tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. Jose Altuve making dreams come true for one very lucky Astros fan and his family. We'll give you a little sneak peek at what's in store as we'll bring the full story to you tonight at 9 o'clock. But I mentioned the GOAT. That word gets thrown a lot around these days, especially on social media. And I feel like some of the younger generation really likes to say, if something's good, oh, well, he or she's a GOAT. With Simone Biles, it's undisputed. The most decorated Olympic gymnast in U.S. history. 30 world championship and Olympic medals to her credit. Of course, she won 5 medals at the 2016 game. 4 of those were gold, and she's the favorite to bring home a huge cachet of medals yet again. She arrived back in Houston earlier today, along with one of her teammates, Jordan Childs, from the U.S. Olympic trials, which were held over the weekend in St. Louis. Our Mark Berman was there and spoke to her and Jordan and their coach. Here's what Simone had to say about being back home.
And their boyfriend, Texan safety Jonathan Owens, along with fellow Olympian Jordan Childs, her mother Gina, and one of their coaches, Cecile Landy, arrived at Bush Intercontinental Airport Tuesday morning from the gymnastics Olympic trials in St. Louis. World Champion Center in spring, where Simone and Jordan train, has become the center of the universe for the U.S. women's gymnastics team. Cecile and her husband, Laurent, coach the Olympians at World Champion Center. Both will work with them in Tokyo, and Laurent will be Team USA women's head coach.
It means a lot. He's put in a lot of work, so me and Jordan are super excited to have him as head coach, as well as Cecile being able to go to Tokyo with us.
How much can that help you athletes in the heat of battle, having your coaches there with you?
Yeah, it will help a lot because they've been our rocks through this whole entire process. In the gym, out of the gym, whatever they need, they'll always cater to us, and so it means a lot for us.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, having 2 athletes going into an Olympic dream of theirs and having a head coach like Laurent is definitely an amazing thing, and I'm excited because I trust him and he's going to be a good coach.
What about having both Laurent and Cecile there with you?
That's another big thing. I mean, this is also a huge thing for Cecile.
What does it mean to you and your husband that he is the Team USA head coach?
It's well deserved, obviously. We're super excited to both to be able to go, and the girls as well. So 2 for 2 is cool.
How much can it help Simone and Jordan that you and your husband are there with them in the heat of battle?
I think it will just keep it as like it was another meet in practice. It's a good balance between each other, and I think it will help them. I hope so anyway.
And Simone has the opportunity to become the first woman in more than 50 years to win back-to-back gold in the all-around.
That would be crazy. It's surreal. We have to get there first. We don't know, but I'm super excited to have the opportunity to at least compete in the second Olympic Games.
Mark Berman, Fox 26 Sports.
And we will again have more from Simone and Jordan tonight at Fox 26 News at 9. And if you want all the updates, of course, be sure to follow Mark Berman on Twitter. He's at Mark Berman, Fox 26. All right, let's transition to the Stros. I said they're in action. The game just got underway, and not the start that Houston was looking for. Cedric Mullins leading off with a home run. So already 1-0 Baltimore over the Stros, but of course still very early on. But Cedric Mullins taking Jose Urquidy deep. Now before the game, the Stros did get some good news on the injury front. Of course, they've lost 2 of 3, but up until then they had won 11 in a row and are absolutely humming. Find themselves atop not just the division, but the American League standings. They're firmly in the mix for the best record in the AL as we approach the All-Star game. But they're doing all this with Alex Bregman on the sidelines. And anybody who's watched the Stros, not just this year, but even going back to last year, Bregman, you could see, was kind of up and down, hasn't really been himself. And he admitted that he's not felt 100% the last 2 years as he's had to deal with some nagging injuries. And of course, it all came to a head last week when he got hurt running down the first baseline trying to beat out a ball, and turned out to be a quad strain. But he got some good news today with the MRI, and he says that the rehab is going well and he's chugging along, and he expects that he's going to be back to his usual self before the season's over, and that he thinks this is something he can put behind him. Here's what Alex Bregman had to say to reporters at Minute Maid Park.
Things are going really good. Still no timetable, but felt great. Ran today on the ground and not the treadmill for the first time, so feeling good. We stressed it today in the gym, stressed it running, so we'll see how we react from that, and I'll know more later tonight on how the healing's going. Going to look at it again on an ultrasound to make sure the healing's going as planned, but things are going really, really, really well. I just want to feel normal again physically for the first time in 2 years. Getting everything squared away to be in a position to never have to deal with this stuff again.
And you heard him say he wants to just feel normal for the first time in 2 years. That's something that Bregman repeated again today when our Mark Berman spoke with him just a short time ago before the game at Minute Maid. And he said that he's taking a long-term approach to this, that he wants to get the rehab over and done with, not try to rush back because he feels kind of good or he wants to get back in the lineup, just get it all completely healed up and out of the way so that he can go back to being the MVP candidate that he was before the injuries. You think back to 18-19, I mean, he was without a doubt one of the 3 or 4 best players in the entire American League. And the Stros are winning right now without him, but just adding him back to the mix sometime post All-Star break would be absolutely huge for this team that is still getting it done. And obviously the pitching carrying the load right now, but these guys still mashing the baseball, and they're doing it without arguably their best bat in the lineup on the sidelines right now. So I mentioned some more good news. Alex Bregman had an MRI earlier today. The results came back in positive, whatever that means in terms of it's the results that he wanted, not positive for any type of break or further injury or anything like that. It can always get confusing when you're talking about x-rays and MRI results and using the word positive. But Alex likes what he heard today. Here's what he had to say to our Mark Berman.
Yeah, it went really good. Was really excited by the results. Everything's looking solid. So it's just a step in the right direction, continue to progress, continue to move in the right direction, and hopefully be back sooner than later.
ultrasound kind of let you breathe a sigh of relief again?
100%. That's the main reason for it, just to check it out, make sure everything's going in the right direction, and kind of breathe that sigh of relief and continue to work towards getting back soon and fully healthy.
Any timeline yet for you?
Not quite. It's probably the next week and a half. We'll be able to tell more of a timeline once I fully get into running at higher speeds. But nothing's out of the question.
Again, Alex and the entire Astros organization reluctant to put a timeline on. He's definitely going to be back on this date, but Dusty Baker on the radio pregame show earlier today on 790 said he thinks it's probably going to be about a month before Bregman can be back in the lineup. And you just heard Alex say that it's going to be sometime in the next week or two, basically until the All-Star break, when they'll have a better idea as he ramps up his ability to run and move laterally. He said that he's able to go out there and he can swing and he can, rotate. It's when he starts running and trying to put his head down and, beat out a throw to first or really put the pedal to the metal, that's where they have to slowly ramp things up. But at least good news that it's not something, at least right now, that Alex or the Astros think is going to continue to be a long-term lingering issue. Those are sometimes the injuries that can end up hurting you the most, is the little nagging things that are just kind of always there in the back of your mind, or you're just always kind of feeling just a little bit off. And you saw with the start that Alex got off to this year and even last year in the abridged season, where it wasn't the consistency that you're used to seeing from Bregman wasn't always there. And he admits it's because he hasn't felt 100%. So again, Astros trying to bounce back. They just got out of the top half of the first, 1-0 Baltimore, as Houston gets set to come up to bat, trying to get back on track after what's been a weird weekend. Remember, they had that rain out on Friday, so then they had to play a doubleheader Saturday in Detroit against A.J. Hinch and the Tigers. Ended up splitting the doubleheader Saturday, then lost Sunday on a suicide, or not a suicide, but on a squeeze play. And again, just a weird weekend in terms of, you could tell the Astros were just not in it like they normally are. And it's something that Dusty Baker, Carlos Correa, Miles Straw, a bunch of the guys admitted that when you get into the dog days, which is where you're starting to get now as you approach the All-Star break, then you throw into the mix having to travel, having to play doubleheader, and the fact that, don't forget, the Astros right now are in the midst of playing 20 games in 20 days. Now, obviously, they had an unscheduled day off with that rain out on Friday, but this is when you start to see weird things happen like you've seen the past few games. And then, of course, last night, Zach Greinke struggled just to get through 5 innings. I think it was 96 pitches just to get through 5 innings. Kept the score relatively low, kept Houston in it, but, of course, the bats were not there like they have been during this recent run that the Astros went on, and that's why they ultimately ended up going into the 9th inning tied, and then that's where things just totally imploded with the bullpen. A 9-7 loss, and Carlos Correa got hit in the 9th inning when it looked like the game was completely out of reach, and you were just trying to run this one out. He's back in the lineup today, though. So Dusty Baker says he feels good. No worries about Correa. He did all his regular pregame stuff and back in the starting lineup and looking to get the Astros back on track. So, again, Houston, a game and a half up on Oakland in the standings, tied for Boston for the best record in the American League. And you think back to early in the season when Houston got off to that slow start. They were, of course, dealing with injuries to a number of guys, especially on their pitching staff. And one of the things that we talked about was, well, right now, at least this year in the American League, there doesn't appear to be that dominant team, or even that second team that you go, all right, it's definitely going to be team A or team B that you're going to have to go through. One of these teams is going to win the AL pennant. There's a whole lot of teams that could lay claim to that stake. And while you're starting to see a bit more separation, you've seen some teams like the Yankees, the Angels kind of tail off, even though we know that with the firepower that those kind of teams have, maybe they make a run. I don't see it at this point, but there's still plenty of teams that you just look at the American League standings, whether it's Boston and Tampa, Chicago and Cleveland with their pitching staff, the Stros and Oakland. I'm not a believer in Seattle, even though they're having the best season they've had in quite a few years. But there's still at least about a half dozen teams that can make a run. And if they ended up winning the AL pennant at the end of the year, it does not seem shocking. So that's why, even though, yes, the Stros went on that win streak and you go, all right, it was kind of a weird weekend, you can't afford to let up this year, because there does appear to be a whole lot of parity in the American League. And so the Stros lose 3 or 4, and all of a sudden that lead that looked like, all right, they're starting to pull away from Oakland, now it's just a game and a half as we approach the All-Star break. Do want to mention that Houston leads all teams in baseball as they announced the finalists to start in the Midsummer Classic. The Stros with 7 different finalists to get a starting nod after the first round of voting. They'll, of course, name the starters later this week, and then they'll fill out the rosters, I believe, on Sunday. But Houston, for all the vitriol that they encounter on the road, and as much as everybody says that they hate the Astros and they're never going to forgive them for what happened in 2017, somehow there's still stuff in the ballot box when it comes to who's going to rep them in the All-Star game. And even if all 7 guys don't end up as starters, which it seems unlikely, like Alex Bregman is one of the finalists to start. He's obviously not going to start at third base at this point, but Houston should still be well represented in Colorado for the All-Star game this year. Now, I did mention an off-the-field story that we will have in full for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9, and that is Jose Altuve doing something special for one very lucky fan.
It felt amazing now that I know that Jose Altuve and Coach Joe believe in me now.
It was very special, and I'm happy that I could put a smile on his face.
He's not that tall, and I'm not that tall, and I thought I would never be a good baseball player because how small I am, but Altuve showed me that it's not the size of the player, it's the size of his game, and I have game.
That was Rylan Rosales, a all-star in his Little League out in Pasadena. We'll have the full background of just why Rylan got the chance to meet Jose and the inspiration that Jose was able to provide for little Rylan and his family. Again, be sure to tune in at 9 o'clock. Just one update, the bottom of the first just ended, still 1-0 Baltimore over the Stros. One piece of NBA news we do want to pass along, the Hawks are going to be without Trae Young tonight against the Bucks after Chris Middleton, a Texas A&M guy, propelled the Bucks to a dominant fourth quarter in the last game, and now Atlanta without their best player because of injury tonight. It's looking more and more like Phoenix, Milwaukee could end up being the NBA Finals that we're going to get. Now, if Paul George wants to play like he did last night, then maybe that series ends up going 7, as now it's going to shift back and the Clippers have a chance to force a game 7. But again, for tonight, Trae Young out for Atlanta. All right, one more story we want to bring to you tonight before we sign off, and that is something special happening at a motorcycle track out in Splendora. A young woman who decided to combine the downtime she had during the pandemic with a passion of hers and doing it all for a good cause.
For me, it's my moving meditation when I'm riding. It completely changed my life into a positive note, giving me more purpose and like really allowing me to be my highest self and empower me to just empower others. That's how I feel with motorcycles. There is not a lot of flat tracks around this area, and it's one of my passions. So I started the track because when COVID happened, I had extra time and I started cutting the grass of the property. And at some point, it hit me that something that was so freely given to me, I can give back to somebody else. So maybe start a nonprofit so that I can maybe help somebody else find their way. Everything that is being earned, it will be towards the nonprofit so that we can help others, maybe provide scholarships for welding classes, you name it. So it's open for everybody. I want to be my best self every day, but I want you to also find that so that you can help others. And we were helping each other, community flourish. And that's how I see it, instead of like, oh, it's all about me. Like, yeah, the track was me, but it's like, it's not for me. It's for all of you, men and women, or however you identify. This is open for everybody to come have fun, enjoy the bikes, build community, and just give back to the community. Just come and check it out, have fun, and then try something new.
That story brought to you by Fox 26 photojournalist Doug Biggers. Our thanks to him for that. And again, check out madebycarolina.com/thefullthrottle if you'd like more information on how to go up and try your hand at motorcycle riding on a flat track, and all the proceeds will benefit charity. So one last update. Top of the second, still 1-0. Of course, we'll have the Astros highlights for you. We'll have that special story on Jose Altuve and much more on Simone Biles as she arrives back home, likely for the last time before she heads out to Tokyo for the Olympics to try to do what the GOATs do, and that is just go out there and dominate. So our thanks to Simone, to Jordan Childs, their coach, Cecile Landy, to all of you for joining us. Be sure to do it every Tuesday. You can find us on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, or at fox26houston.com. And as always, for all the latest updates on the Houston sports scene, make sure you're following our sports director, Mark Berman, on Twitter. He is at Mark Berman, Fox 26. I'm Sal Manine. We'll see you next week. Thanks.